Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Sit down and relax. I want to say, first of all, to Mayor Malloy and his wonderful running mate for State Controller Nancy Wyman, who's over there. I thank them for running and for putting their lives on the line for Connecticut's future. I want to thank my old law school classmate and your next United States Senator, Attorney General Dick Blumenthal. We have your State Treasurer, Denise Napier, the candidate for Attorney General, George Jefferson, Denise Snell, candidate for Secretary of State, Kevin Rainbow, the candidate for Controller. Thank you all for being here. The Mayor of West Hartford and the Mayor of Hartford are both here. Thank you very much. The President of this great school welcomed me, and I'm glad to be here. I want you to know something. This is about the 125th event I have done in this election. And this is not my life anymore. You heard what Dan said. My life is my foundation. I've been driving from place to place, getting on the phone, trying to keep the cholera epidemic in Haiti from spreading to the camps. And I worry about small businesses in America and how to keep them open during this recession and how to save our kids from our biggest public health problem, childhood obesity, which may give us 1 in 3 Americans with diabetes by 2050. I worry about these things, and that's my life now. And originally, all I planned to do in this election was to go around and do a few events for the people who 2 years ago helped my wife in the election because, as President Obama's Secretary of State, Secretary of State, she and the Secretary of Defense, under our system, cannot participate in elections. We try to make national security matters above politics. I agree with that, but it means you're stuck with me. And that's all I meant to do, because I got all this other stuff going on. And the more I went around, the more concerned I became that in the throes of all these difficulties, we were about to have the most fact-free election in my lifetime, when what we need is to make clear-headed judgments about how to get America back on track based on the facts. So, I'm not even sure it's good politics, because I hear all this rhetoric flying around, and all I need to do is talk about what works and what doesn't. I'm not interested in left or right. I'm interested in right and wrong, and tomorrow or yesterday. And I still spend an hour a day studying the economy with all this other stuff, because I want to figure out what to do. When Japan had this happen to them 10 years ago, it took them 10 whole years to get out of the rut they were in. These financial crises are hard to overcome, and I feel very strongly about it. So I'm here because I like and admire Dan Malloy, but I'm very grateful to Connecticut. You supported me twice. This state was good to me. It gave me a law school education. If I had never come to Connecticut, I never would have met Hillary. My whole life would have been different. And you know that old joke about the guy that gets to be the CEO of a company, and his wife's first boyfriend ran a service station? And he says, you know, if you hadn't married me, you might be stuck at that service station. She said, no, if you hadn't married me, you'd be running that service station. That's the way I feel. So I owe Connecticut more than I could ever repay. This is a big deal. First thing I want to say is, the shape and speed with which Connecticut comes out of this mess our country is in will be determined in no small measure by who the governor is. When I came here in 1992, running for president, I had been the governor of my state for a dozen years. In the 1980s, believe it or not, in the middle of the country, we were hurting almost as bad as the whole country is now. Agriculture collapsed. All the manufacturing was eaten alive. It was a nightmare. I had county after county after county in my state with 11, 15, 20% unemployment rates. And I worked like a dog for a decade to turn it around. But when I got here, my state was first in the country in job growth. We had one of only 2 states without pension plans in trouble. And a big national survey just said we were one of the 2 states with the most improved schools. It matters who the governor is. It's first thing it matters what you know, what you've done, and whether you can turn your good words into real changes in other people's lives. It's easy to talk at election time, put all those ads up and all that stuff that's going on. It's a very different thing to turn your good intentions into real changes. One of the reasons I love my foundation work is I tell all the young people that work for me all over the world, if anybody asks you what we do, tell them we're in the how business. We figure out how to turn what everybody wants to do into real changes. That's what Connecticut needs. This is not rocket science. What do you need? You need a growing, more diverse economy of 21st century jobs that allow people to have a middle-class lifestyle, allow poor people to work themselves into the middle class, and if you do, you will have all the millionaires and billionaires you can say grace over, because the rising tide will lift all boats. Now, I want to get out of this fact-free election just for a few minutes and talk about how we got into this mess. Not to blame, to explain. Here are the facts. Before the financial collapse, which occurred on February the 15th, 2008, when Lehman Brothers failed, was not bailed out, and the stock market crashed, leading to the biggest financial collapse since the Great Depression. Before then, in the 7 years and 8 months after I left office, the economy had produced a grand total of 2.5 million jobs. That's 10% as many as was produced in my 8 years, 22.7 million new jobs. Now, all the growth was strangled in 3 areas: in housing, consumer purchases, and finance. There were limits to housing, as we found out. There are limits to consumer spending when you max out your credit card and take out a second mortgage. And finance was constrained because we had continually pushed money upward, making our country more and more unequal for 30 years. And you had a lot of money, it was all dressed up and no place to go. No way to make money out of the old-fashioned way, starting new businesses, opening new factories, helping to take private companies public so they could hire new people. So they just kept taking more and more risks in ways that were job killing. When this market went down, Bear Stearns, which was bailed out, had $34 in risk for every $1 they had in the bank. Lehman Brothers, which failed and was not bailed out because their assets weren't worth much, had $29 at risk for every dollar in the bank. Traditional community bank in Connecticut or anywhere else in America would be able to loan about $10 for every dollar you put in the bank. Now, the government was supposed to stop that and didn't. So we had this meltdown. It kept going till about July of last year. One of the things that tickles me to hear the Republicans tell it, every Democrat's responsible for everything that happened in the economy from the second our new president took his hand off the Bible. It was only 4 months after they started. I'd like to see anybody, and I mean anybody, get behind a locomotive going straight downhill at 200 miles an hour and stop it in 10 seconds. You cannot do it. So, we bottomed out.